Welcome to Newsmax TV. I'm Ashley Martella. Joining us in our studio are Grover Norquist, president of Americans for Tax Reform and a leading voice in the conservative movement, and also Dave Keene, chairman of the American Conservative Union. That's the group that organizes CPAC, and it is the largest and oldest grassroots conservative organization. Welcome to you both, gentlemen.
Pleasure to be here.
Grover, let's start with you. In the unrest in Egypt, you've spent your political life building coalitions among various ethnic and religious groups. What grade would you give President Obama on his handling of the crisis in Egypt, and why?
Well, Obama's coming in kind of late in the game. The challenge in Egypt is they haven't had economic reforms, they haven't had property rights, they haven't had free trade. The economy's not good, and the government's not very responsive. So they're having all these challenges now. I'm not sure that Obama's jumping around and getting involved at all makes any difference. The people of Egypt have kind of made a decision. They want to change their leadership.
All right, Dave, as a fiscal conservative, when you see the U.S. has given over $60 billion to Egypt, which now teeters on the brink of chaos, was that money well spent in your view?
Well, over the years, it probably has been well spent because we're now fearful of what could happen if Egypt goes bad, if this whole thing turns bad, and it very easily could. We don't know that it will, but it could. This could have happened a long time ago. Egypt played a central role in that part of the world and give us what little stability there is. But you know, what we didn't do during that whole period was we didn't urge the government to build the civic institutions necessary to underpin a transition to democracy, and that's why they're in such a dangerous spot now.
Okay. Let's turn to domestic issues. Virginia Attorney General Ken Cuccinelli has asked the Supreme Court for an expedited review of Obamacare now. This comes as a federal court in Florida declared Obamacare, the whole law, unconstitutional, and several states are now saying they will not implement the law as a result. In your view, is Obamacare extensively over? First you.
Well, there's a lot to be done, but clearly the courts are pointing out that a lot of it was not thought through and doesn't really show up in the Constitution anywhere. Certainly, overwhelmingly, the American people would like to get rid of it, the polls show. And the Republicans in the House and 47 votes in the Senate said get rid of the whole thing. There's a lot of momentum for getting rid of it, but Obama still has the veto. It's going to take some time.
On Capitol Hill, all 51 Democrat senators stuck together and beat back an attempt by Republicans to repeal Obamacare, but a repeal bill passed overwhelmingly in the House. Do you expect House Republicans will try to eviscerate Obamacare piece by piece through defunding, as many advocate?
That's Plan B. Plan A was to have the vote to repeal it because Republicans promised the American people in the fall campaign that they would do that. They've done it. They know that the president has the veto. They know they don't control the Senate. They'd need 60 votes in the Senate to win it. Now what they're going to try and do is on the one hand strangle it by cutting off funds and fighting the regulations, and on the other hand pass the kinds of reforms independently that Republicans support. And then outside is the court challenge, which could topple the entire thing. Altogether, it's going to be a fight that's going to go on, and it's going to go on for some time. But those Democrats who voted to stop the repeal effort voted against the wishes of the people of their states because the polls continue to show that the public doesn't want it, didn't want it, and isn't about to start liking it the way the president hopes.
Grover, you're a big tax guy. The Senate did vote to take out the part of the bill that required employers to show a 1099 for various expenses. Is this something that, is this the first step, or is that too little too late?
It's a small step in the right direction. Again, it's removing some of the bricks on which Obamacare was built. It was a particularly vicious, intrusive tax increase that was deliberately designed to make a criminal out of every small businessman in America because you couldn't possibly have kept the paperwork they were insisting on. So it was a huge victory in terms of beginning to dismantle Obamacare, but a tremendous step forward in getting the Obama administration to back off their attack on small business.
The amazing thing, if I could throw in here, the amazing thing is that the administration, in the face of these court decisions, says we'll just ignore them. Yeah. One of their spokesmen said, what does it matter what a couple of judges say? Mm-hmm. Imagine for a second if George W. Bush, as president, had been faced with a court decision, as he was on maybe on surveillance or on some of the things that he was doing in terms of the war against terror, and he'd said, what are a couple of judges? There'd have been riots in the streets.
Yeah.
Dave, next week, House Budget Committee Chairman Paul Ryan is expected to unveil target amounts of overall spending cuts this year. How much would be a good start?
Well, the goal of the Republicans, and we're hoping they'll get there this year, it may take them a little longer, is to roll back the spending to 2008 levels. The Obama administration said, well, we'll freeze it at the levels we have now. It's out of control now. So freezing it at this point doesn't do any good. It has to be rolled back.
That was Obama's plan. They threw so much spending on the table, and then they were planning on pulling back a little bit from that or freezing it, cutting the deficit from the $1.5 trillion that they raised and wanting to argue that they'd accomplished something. We need to undo the damage that they did in the first place.
You know, you have to go to Washington to find people that don't think this country has a fiscal problem.
Yeah.
That's the only place you'll find them. You've got the Democratic governor of New York making draconian cuts up there, along with the Republican governor of New Jersey and the governor in Florida. They know there's a problem. In Washington, you can talk to politician after politician, and they say, oh, well, you know, we can make some adjustments. They really don't get it.
And another big state, California, has decided to tackle their budget problems by raising taxes. Is that a wise thing for them to do?
Well, the good news in California, because of Proposition 13, passed in 1978, requires a 2/3 vote of both houses of the legislature to actually raise taxes in the budget. The Republicans have a third plus, and even more important than that, all but 2 of them have taken the pledge, the Taxpayer Protection Pledge that Americans for Tax Reform shares with all candidates. They've taken the pledge never to raise taxes or to put it on the ballot to raise taxes. So Governor Brown, Moonbeam Brown, wants to raise taxes, but he can't do it. And hopefully the Republicans will hold, the pledge takers will keep their word, and the governor will have to come back with Plan B, which is stop spending so much.
You started Americans for Tax Reform at the behest of former President Ronald Reagan, who would have been 100 years old on February 6th. Now, how would Reagan deal with today's economic challenges? Either one of you is fine.
Focused on the spending. Spend less.
He had a similar problem,
That's true.
not to the same degree that we have it today, because things have got so much worse. But he came in with an economic recession. He came in with all these things, and like conservative presidents before him, he said the answer to this is to hold the line, cut spending, and get through it, and he did. He did it in a period where Obama went exactly in the other direction and hasn't gotten through it. What does that tell us? One was right, maybe the other one wasn't.
We here at Newsmax have devoted our latest issue and video coverage on our website to remember the great President Reagan. You're behind an effort called the Ronald Reagan Legacy Project. Please tell us about it.
Sure. It's an effort to get things named after Reagan. Our first success was getting Reagan Airport in the Washington, D.C. area named after the president while he was still living. Now over 100 things around the country, the Florida Turnpike, buildings have been named after Reagan, and our goal is to get something significant in each of the 50 states and something in each of the 3,000 plus counties. And now, of course, with his 100th anniversary, there are things in Eastern Europe being named after Reagan.
Dave?
Well, I think that's very important, because Ronald Reagan is not just an iconic figure among Republicans. He actually, as a citizen politician, came to power, acted on his beliefs, solved problems, defeated the Soviet Empire, and got this country back on the right track. Since then, we've slipped. But if we look back, it's Ronald Reagan who has the record in the past of what we need to emulate today to do what he did in 1980 and the years beyond that. So it's incredibly important. You know, you only know what you learn. You only know, your kids only know what they're taught in school. I'd like kids 20 years ago to say, Dad, why is that thing named after this fellow Reagan? Then if they ask those questions, they'll learn.
Grover Norquist and Dave Keene, thanks so much for sharing your thoughts with us here at Newsmax. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching Newsmax TV.